And there's structure to everything, I would say. Like, you know, there's a structure to doing things. There's a structure to budgeting your money. We don't always do that, though. I mean, honestly, like, with just how we spend, like, we don't need to do that, I would say. Because we don't go over the amount that, you know, but I know, like, we don't go over the amount that you should spend. And it's like, I think, like, honestly, like, a lot of people need that structure, though. It's like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, 50% of my income is gonna go to the expenses that I have, and then, like, you know, 10% is, or 20% is to, like, you know, needs, wants, whatever, or like things you would.
The odd thing is, like, it says 50% towards, like, your, like,
spending
to your
expenses.
life, your expenses, and then like 30% to your wants and 20% to your needs. I don't really think that should be more of the wants. I think the way
savings.
that it should.
They also
I think
say
it should,
savings.
Yeah, 20% to your saving. Oh yeah, that's right.
It's like 10% savings or something.
It's 30 and then 20. So I think 20. You save 20.
Yeah.
And for your wants you do 30. I think it should be reversed. Personally, I'd rather save the 30% and spend the 20%.
Yeah.
That's just my way of stewarding it, or our way of stewarding it, because we want to make sure that we're prepared for another harvest, or say God has other plans for the business to grow, or say God's calling us to bless somebody. What would have happened if we just constantly, like, we're like, oh, I still got room to spend the 30%. And it's like, we're trying to be smart.
Well, and also there's the 10% for stewarding too. I mean, for tithing at the end too. And it's like, you know, a lot of people don't think about that, and you're kind of just blowing your money right off the bat, and then there's nothing left for you to save or steward into the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's what's hard, is that a lot of people they want to just, like, you know, they think it's fine, they don't consider certain things or whatever. And I think, like, there's a middle ground to things. It's like, obviously don't be so freaked out about money and, like, think you're, like, you know, you're not making enough money, I'm gonna run out of money, you know. But then also, like, don't just spend frivolously without having any sort of game plan for what your expenses are and what they should look like, and what you're stewarding, your fun, all of that, what it looks like, you know. And, like, sometimes it's just a matter of, like, cutting back in certain areas and stuff. And I think that's just important in life too. It's like, you don't need the newest whatever. You don't need the newest pair of shoes. You don't need the newest, you know.
If your shoes are still good.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't need the newest, like, laptop if your laptop still works fine. Even in business, I mean, it's like there's certain needs where it's like, okay, yeah, like, for instance, we still have our 2014 MacBook Air that, you know, we don't use it as much because we also have other stuff that we use, but it's like we still function, so we use it as, like, still another thing. And it's like, we don't need to, like, go out and buy the newest thing. It's like, that could be used for newer
laptop purposes. Isn't even it's not even, like, the newest edition where we need to go, like, oh, I need the 2025 model. It's like, dude, like, 2022
it's not going to change the quality of your work. I don't know, you know. Like, I really, like, it really doesn't, like, you know. And I think a lot of this stuff is, like, we're brainwashed by society to think that, like, we need these things all the time, and consumerism, which in turn, I guess it makes sense, because if you think about it, if you're starting a business, sometimes you're going to be in the field of consumerism. And that's just how it is. And it's like, it's not a bad thing, because people want certain things and they can get certain things. But I'm saying, like, for you as, like, a business owner, it's so important to steward everything when you're starting out and even throughout your business. And don't spend, what was the thing? Don't spend, when you're in your business, don't spend over a certain amount of your finances that come in. There was a certain amount, I think it's like 60% or like 40%, you know. And then on top of that, we have to account for taxes,
which is already
too. And taxes are, so it's like, you gotta see, this is what you gotta save for. You gotta save for the storm.
Recall election. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, so, like, you know,
back to more parts about the business is
funny.
God gives us blueprints to do things. God gives us our brains. He shows us how to do things, but we also have other examples. And I think I would love to, be looked at as an example for businesses, like from other people. But I know that there are a lot of examples that we could look at of good stewardship for businesses and of good blueprints. If someone's already doing something, if someone's system already works, it's good. It's safe to say you could follow along that as long as it's moral and ethical.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, say like in Exodus, right, chapter 25 and all the way through 31, God gave Moses the blueprint of how to build a tabernacle. He said what to build, what materials to use, creativity, who to build. There's like, God is doing things like that. And he also says like there's also moments where like you're in your stewardship, you could delegate to other people if you're out of time or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's typically if you're having a lot of growth or if you're stressed out, like it's good to have business partners.
Yeah.
So it's good to include partners, and it's good to be strategic about how you put things together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think partnerships are one of the most overlooked things in business, because a lot of times we just want to start by ourselves and maybe you lack a skill that someone else is like excelling in, and then they you miss out on potential opportunities to do really well and succeed in that business. And I think it's like so important that you find the people that are going to complement you and help you build this business together. Whatever that may be, like some people are like, I just know with us, normally how it would go is like, Emilio does a lot of like the SEO, a lot of the technical stuff. And I would do more the social media stuff and the, creating the videos. And that's what I would do when especially when we first started doing everything that was like our rhythm, I guess you could say. And we were like partners.
We are partners.
We are partners in the sense of but it's like, that's what we would do. And I'd also be like, the one talking to the clients, because that's just my skill. Like I'm a people person. Like I talk to people, and that's just me. And Emilio's not a people person. He just doesn't know how to talk to people. No, I'm just kidding. He doesn't know how to talk in general.
I can nerd out sometimes, and it's better to have someone who's more personable.
Yeah, I'm more personable and I guess you could say relatable, but I don't want to be that girl that's like, I'm relatable.
Pick me.
Pick me.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that we should talk about is, measure the measurements that we take, looking at the data, and a lot of the times, especially social media, right? But business in general, people focus too much and identify based on their data. It's like, oh, I'm doing great only because, I got 1.5 million views on my video. It's like, okay, of those 1.5 million views, who's actually paying attention to your stuff? Who's actually buying from your business? Who's actually moving forward with it?
Really?
Who did you actually affect?
Yeah. Yeah. And quality matters over quantity for sure, because the quality of your business, the quality of the people that are buying from you, the quality of your your customers, your clients, that all matters more than how many you have, because you could have 100 clients that are paying you nothing and treating you like crap,
wanting everything in the world
for that $100. And that's typically the people that they want to pay the least, but they want the most, or a few people paying you a good amount of money, but they are appreciative of the work that you do, and actually you give them good results because you're not so stressed out, and you're able to succeed properly and do what you need to do properly because you have the funds to do so, and you're able to see clearly because you don't have 100 people barking at you and stuff like that, and whatever it is. But obviously we know, and some businesses move at a different pace because they have different quotas to meet. They have different ways that they make money. They can make money faster than others can. So it's someone who has so many more employees, or partners, they can take on a lot of stuff. They can take on people at an exponential rate because they have the ability to do so. But when it's just you and a partner, or you're starting out and you have just a few people on your team, you don't want to have like, you know, so many people to take care of, because
imagine you have 2 clients and 5 employees. Imagine you have 2 clients and 5 employees. Like that's so off balance. And like that's gonna probably lose money.
You don't want to take on that's so many people and not do excellent work. Like do your best in every single thing that you do, because if you don't, then people are going to notice. And you're even like notice.
Another biblical value, like in 2 Samuel, I think it was like chapter 23, when David took the census, and God was like, what you doing over there? Like, get off your high horse, you know, and he was humbled, you know. But the other thing too is like not identifying with all the data. Like you got to ask yourself, is this just floating my ego?
Yeah.
You know, because I have, you know, 100 clients, but they're not really paying me well, but I got 100 clients.
Yeah.
You know, or is it real stewardship? Because like you were saying, like you could have 5 clients that pay you really well and appreciate everything that you do because you have real value. Or you could have 100 clients who don't care about you at all. They just want the deal from you, and they want everything from you, and they're going to call you all the time because they want everything from you, and you're like, you're kind of burnt out. So you have to understand what you're really doing. So stewardship is also one, like stewarding the relationship, making sure that the relationship doesn't become toxic. And also making sure you're nurturing the people that need you. And the other is making sure you're not on a whole ego trip because of all the people that you're with. You know?
Yeah. And that just comes with, you know, having that right, what would you call it? Strategy. Having the right strategy to running your business that's like half the battle, basically. It's like that. And then that comes along with finding clients and like, you know, how you find customers and like, you know, everything connects with each other, like the CRM, like everything, like your touch points, continuously staying in touch with people, making people feel like they can trust your business, whatever. It's like it's all connected into your strategy.
Like here's an example of how like things can just get weird and fail, right? So it's like, imagine I have a business of like, let's say it's a clothing business. Hey Olivia, I have a clothing business. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just awkward. It's like, but if I were to say, hey, Olivia, I have a clothing business and I think it could really help you out. Or, hey, Olivia, I noticed that you came into my shop the other day. Is there anything I could help you out with? Is there anything that I could do for you? And you nurture that relationship and you show the person that you're there for them, regardless of if it's just a customer or not. It's still a relationship nonetheless. And you have to treat it like a relationship. You have to treat it like they're important because they are important. Because one, they're important, one, as a person because God made them. Two, they're important because if it's about business, you can be making something from it. You can be, you know, stewarding your business wisely.
Definitely.
And so it's a lot of stewardship. It's multifaceted stewardship. You know?
No, I agree. I think like we tend to overlook all the little things that make up your strategy and make up just stewarding your business. And I think it's really important that we recognize that it's not just something you can just mess around with and find out, you know, it's something you have to like plan and prepare for and have build up the skills while you're trying to, you know what I'm saying, while you're trying to do that, like while you're trying to start your business, build up the skill of like having strategies and making game plans and making plans for your business.
And don't think that you're too good to like develop strategies,
because you will need that. Like there's only so much motivation in the beginning to keep you going. Like honestly, like you're
gonna need discipline.
You're gonna burn out if you don't have discipline and strategy and stewardship to everything that you're doing, and a whole bigger meaning to what you're doing, which is obviously our faith. You know, that is the biggest meaning to what we do in life, right? So it's like, if you don't have that built into your business as your core foundation and your rock, basically, you're not going to be able to succeed. You're not going to be able to do well, because
It's like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Everything flows basically like from your heart, but like that means your faith, you know, like who you are as a human, right? So it's like who we are is our identity is in Christ. So it's like if we don't have that solid and that's going well, then everything else will just like
it kind of falls into place if you do everything right.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're managing your CRM right, you know, there's going to be people who are still interested, even if you don't have the most amazing website, even if you don't have the most amazing product, but they will feel like going to you because you made them feel right. You know, they experience something that's different, especially the fact that you have Jesus dwelling in your heart.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when we look at everything, we can see that one, God gives us the ability to build strategically. And that's literally from the beginning is that he had a plan, that he had a strategy to make sure, a system to make sure that everything was laid out. He had a plan. He was deliberate about how he made us. And so we could take that and be very deliberate about our businesses, about how we manage things. And when it comes to God now, in the new covenant that we have with Jesus, we can see that communication is key. You know, if we're not communicating with God, then our prayer life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not close with him. We're not relating to him. So how could we say, oh, I know God's voice, oh, I'm a Christian, if we're not talking? So in essence, if you're not managing, if you're not stewarding your CRM, if you're not stewarding your relations with your customers or with your clients, then in essence, you're shooting yourself in the foot and trying to run a marathon. You're not going anywhere, like seriously. So like these are really important steps. And we have to understand that not everything's about you. It's about God getting the glory at the end of the day. And when it comes to building your business, that's just good stewardship. It's not because we're trying to hurt you. It's not because we're trying to say something that's mean. It's because it's important to follow, you know? If you look at all the big time businesses, you could see like, you know, multi-billion-dollar businesses, they have multiple departments. They have multiple people taking care of things. Why? Because they're trying to steward over those things to make sure that overall it's great, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important that we just, you know, sit down for a second and make sure that we have that straightened out before we do anything further. You know what I mean? Just everybody do that, you know? And yeah, it's really important.
No strategy, no business.
And if you don't have a strategy, you don't have a business. If you don't steward, you don't have a business.
You got no loyalty.
You have no loyalty. And
no loyalty, no royalty.
Wait, if you don't steward, you don't have a anything to keep you going. What's the thing? Motivation. But then
you have no discipline.
Discipline. Then you lack discipline.
No stewardship shows that you lack discipline.
And no strategy shows that you have no business. And
stewardship also comes to skills too.
No stewardship.
Stewardship is really important for skills. Because like imagine going to the barber or the hair salon or something like that, and like the barber has been, or the hairdresser has been a hairdresser for 20 years, but they literally only did one haircut all the time, and you ask them to do one thing that's slightly different and they just mess you all up because they didn't steward their skill. They didn't learn anything. They didn't develop anything else. They didn't learn different hairstyles or anything like that. So that's important to be able to steward your skill too.
It's the same thing what you said about the worship team. It's like learning. If you don't continuously learn, then what are you doing? Because
like your heart has to be in the right place, and if your heart's in the right place, God will continue to show you like, hey, develop this skill. I gave you this gift. Now don't slap me in the face by not doing anything with it. You know.
So strategy equals business. Stewardship equals discipline.
My bad.
Strategy equals business. Stewardship equals discipline. Bam.
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to end the podcast here. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you
have any other points to add to this.
No, I think it's good. I just hope that everyone enjoyed this episode. I hope it actually meant something to somebody.
Yeah.
And I just hope that with this information, you take it and you run that business, or you start that business, you know, hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make sure that you're thriving, and just thriving in Jesus' name, not just thriving just to thrive.
Yeah.
You know?
Or if you're within the business already and you already are like running your business, that you reevaluate, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reevaluation isn't bad. Arguments aren't bad. it's just looking at the different perspectives, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.